We're going to get started here with our conversation portion, which is exciting, and getting to hear from the authors of the book that we're here celebrating tonight, as well as our wonderful partners over here at the Willard. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here, and thank you so much for being a friend. We truly appreciate your support, which helps to preserve and bring the library treasures to life. I'm Laura. Hopefully, I've met all of you in the room. If I haven't, please come up after and say hello. I would love to meet you. And we are thrilled to bring everyone together, our friends together, to celebrate the publishing office's newest book, American Feast, Cookbooks and Cocktails from the Library of Congress. American Feast, if you haven't had a chance already to look through it, I encourage you to grab it after. Takes you through the evolution of American recipes and food from the earliest founding era households to the 21st century. The book showcases some of the tens of thousands of recipes in the library's books and recipes from the library's collections. So before tonight, some of you may not have known that the library had its own publishing office. It was something I didn't know much about when I first started here, but we have a fabulous team who creates books, zines, other materials that really showcases the history, collections, services, and scholarships here at the library. So American Feast is one of two books in a new collection close-up series. I actually have the other one right here, which focuses on photographs. But the series invites readers to experience the library's treasures in compact, accessible books that curate a unique collection of objects and bring them to life with color, reproductions, historical content, and really fun anecdotes. All of the food tonight you guys are eating come from books in our library's collections, which is great. Hopefully you had a time to look at the posters, which talks a little bit about them. One of my favorite is the Toll House cookies. I had no idea, I grew up with that name, not really knowing how it originated. And hopefully if you pick up the book, there's a great feature on the Easy Bake Oven, gourmet Easy Bake Oven recipes. And really took me back to my childhood. I don't think I made anything gourmet in there, but there is a cookbook for it. So it's really great. I encourage everybody, book sales will be going on throughout the evening. Pick up the book. The authors, Zach and Susan, will be here after, outside where you picked up your name tags, to sign the books and chat with you about it. And here you can learn more from them about how they put this together. So let me turn it over to them, the experts. So we have three great speakers tonight. First is Zach Klitzman, a writer and editor at the Library of Congress's publishing office, and he's been working here since 2020. This is a really fun fact about Zach. Zach is a Jeopardy champion. And yes, his Zoom picture is the proof of that. And holds a degrees in history from the University of Pennsylvania and American University. Then we have Susan Rayburn, is a senior writer-editor in the library's publishing office, has been working here since 2002. You might have had or seen some of her other works before. She's the author of the Not an Ostrich photo zine. So anyone who came to the Friends event for the Knot of Ostrich, you may have picked that up there. That's Susan's work as well. Rosa Parks, in her own words, Football Nation, 400 Years of America's Game, and co-author of Baseball Americana, Treasures from the Library of Congress. She holds degrees in history from UCLA and library information science from Catholic University. And last, but surely not least, we have Jennifer, also known as JJ. She's been with the library's Science, Technology, and Business Division for 18 non-continuous years and is currently the head of its Science Reference Section. She leads a group of librarians who develop the library's print and digital collections, provides reference services, and creates research projects and develops programs. She holds bachelor's degrees in art history and anthropology from UC Santa Cruz and a master's in library science from San Jose State University. As a creator of the library's Everyday Mysteries web feature, she supports curiosity and encourages everyone to observe, learn, and ask questions about the world around us, which is wonderful. So she's expecting a lot of good questions from this audience today about the book as they talk, and we'll have plenty of time for that. So guys, if you head up, and we look forward to learning more.
Center, Jeopardy champion. All right, we're here. Before we begin, I just want to share that during this whole process, I was a huge cheerleader, and they would show me things that they found, or I would show them things, cookbooks that I found, and I was just like, yay, yay, like the whole way through. So it's such a joy to finally see the end product, and it's wonderful. So
Thanks.
we are going to ask you some questions. I'm going to ask you questions, and the audience will ask you questions as well. So I thought we could open it up with how did this book come about? Like, yeah, how did it happen?
How did it happen? Great. Well, first off, thank you everyone for coming here. It means a lot to Susan and me to see so many great supporters of the Library of Congress here. Well, and to answer your question, JJ, as Laura said earlier, this is one of the first of 2 books in a brand new series, Collection Close-Ups from the Library of Congress. And the whole ethos of the series is to provide small snapshots of the library's huge collections. We have something like 175 million items, and of course you can't do a single book or project on all that at once. So each of these books is centered around a specific topic, theme, or collection, almost like a miniature exhibition, if you will, in book format. And so for the first 2 in the series, we had a whole long list of about maybe 30 topics or so that we were thinking of choosing from. And so our colleagues in the publishing office whittled that down a little bit, and then further colleagues throughout the libraries, including JJ, helped choose the final 2 topics. And so for the first 2, we have The Joy of Looking, great photographs from the Library of Congress, and then this book on our great food and drink collections from around the library. So that's kind of the 40,000 foot view of kind of how this book came about.
Do you have anything to add, Susan?
I think he stated it perfectly.
I do. Okay. So I think all of us are wondering, we can't estimate how many cookbooks or culinary items we have. It's sort of romantic and impossible to do that. But we think about over 40,000 titles and countless thousands of other culinary things. What is the process of actually selecting items to put into the book? Because I feel like that would be a very difficult task to do.
It was a little daunting, but it was so much fun. We decided early on that we were just going to focus on American cuisine and American cookbooks. The library has one of the oldest printed cookbooks from Italy, 1480. We would have written a book this big, probably, if we had gone with everything in our collection. So we focused on the American. And one of the first things we did was to think about what are some of the landmark works that have come out that we want to include, and that the library probably has a first edition, and which we definitely include. And so we looked at what foodways and culinary historians were commenting on, what were they suggesting as were landmark pivotal books. But we also wanted to find things that spoke to American history along the way that might not have been necessarily a bestseller or made a crucial contribution to cuisine, but it spoke to the time period, and it spoke to American culture. And so that was another thing that we had in our mind. And so in our conference room, in the office, we had stacks of books, carts of books that we were going through. And and it was a matter of looking at lists that we had developed and what caught our eye, but making sure that we had the basics in there that we really thought that should be in there. But then again, as was mentioned earlier, we had to have the Easy Bake Oven Gourmet Cookbook.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that one. Or the Manifold Destiny.
Or Manifold Destiny.
How to cook on your car engine.
On your car engine, yeah.
Yep. And so the second stage of the process of choosing what goes in the book, first we had to choose broadly what items were represented, but then of course we had to choose what specific image from that book were we going to scan and then include on the pages of our book. Obviously you can't include the entire cookbook in our book, excuse me, so a lot went into that choice. We have a lot of recipes, but of course recipes themselves usually are a little boring to look at, and so we have So we have some of them, but we didn't want just
Born young.
page and page and page and page of text. So we have covers, some brilliant covers from throughout American history. But what's really was a fun element was choosing kind of complementary images that might be, for example, advertising of cocktails. They might be movie posters, other ephemera related to food and drink. And so that was fun, choosing exactly which recipe to use, if there was a really important recipe versus the really outstanding cover, or some of these other items that provide extra color and diversity of images to make it an appealing book as you flip through it.
So that's what sent us all around the library, was going to the Prints and Photographs division, the geography and map. I mean, my gosh, we've got a map of cocktails. So we went to, we visited the Veterans History Project, and we visited, we went everywhere. And it was interesting to find relevant material in all the divisions.
And you're responsible for the Easy Bake Oven Gourmet.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Okay. So what surprised you most about this whole experience, either related to food history or things, culinary items or cookbooks or cocktails?
Well, Susan kind of just touched upon that, which is, for me, what was surprising to learn is that almost literally every division here at the Library of Congress had a relevant item that we could include, or in fact did include. So maps, as Susan said, the music division of all places, I think we have at least 3 items in our book from the music division. For example, Leonard Bernstein created a piano and song composition set to literally lyrics of a cookbook, of a French cookbook that he then kind of transposed. La Bonne Cuisine, so that was a really fun item to have. The manuscript division, as you saw on the display over there, had some really cool handwritten recipes from folks like Thomas Jefferson, Rosa Parks, a whole sidebar featurette on the FDR White House was really fascinating to read. Really surprising to learn just how bad the food was in the FDR White House. Some really good quotes about that. And it was just really great meeting our colleagues who also were really passionate about this project to help us to find the exact right quote or recipe to include in the book. And so if you look at the acknowledgments towards the back, there's quite a long list of colleagues because this really was a collaborative effort. Obviously, Susan and I have our names on the cover, but it was just so gratifying to see the support across the library in all divisions.
Yeah. What did you learn?
Well, the thing that surprised me the most were some of the types of cookbooks that we had, and the collection that is of greatest interest to me, and I had no idea such a thing existed, were prisoner of war cookbooks, and they were absolutely fascinating, and we have a section of them on that. But talking with the experts in the Veterans History Project about how those came about, and that we've got books that were prepared or that were done in both German and Japanese World War II prison camps, and how those servicemen are trying to figure out what they can make with their Red Cross boxes. And there aren't a lot of great choices when you've got powdered milk and chocolate and cigarettes, but they found ways to do it. And they were also collecting recipes from around the world from other servicemen who were also imprisoned, with the idea that they might not ever have this opportunity again, but also they wanted to try these things after the war. And one of them writes about how after the war he tried various recipes that he had thought would be so great when he was imprisoned and all he could think about was food. And almost unanimously, in talking to his fellow POWs after the war, everything they tried that they had cooked up in their minds was no good. But these were fascinating documents of their experiences. And as the war comes to an end and things become a lot more difficult and food is much more scarce, how they're getting by with this. So yeah, the POW, I mean, I had absolutely no idea that we would have such a thing. But it's a marvelous, marvelous collection. And as we were working on the book, or right after it went to the printer, another one came in that was donated, another POW cookbook. So I hope we continue to find those. Yeah.
It could have been the whole book, frankly. A book on POW cookbooks would be fascinating.
Okay. Let's see. I think I need to leave time for you all to ask questions, but I might be stealing one of your questions. Do you have a favorite item or recipe or?
Yeah, I guess I'll say two if I can, real quick. Um, Probably my favorite book in the item, item from our book is American Cookery from 1796, which was on display earlier tonight. You might have seen it. It's the first ever cookbook written by an American and published here in America by Amelia Simmons. Not much is known about Amelia Simmons, who exactly she was. She writes on the title page that she's an American orphan, and she also says later on that she doesn't really know how to read or write fully. But what's so great about the book, besides just being the first book, is it has the first ever pumpkin pie recipe, which is what we're sampling tonight. It uses native ingredients to North America, such as molasses, pumpkin as well. She invented the word cookie, slaw, like a salad. So it's a really monumental work, and what's so great is the library has one of 4 existing first editions. So that was a real treasure to include. And then also, real quickly as well, the Blue Blazer recipe from Jerry Thomas. This was a recipe involving pouring boiling water and scotch or whiskey between 2 mugs while on fire, and it's really it was a real masterpiece of the showman Jerry Thomas, who was this legendary bartender in the 19th century. Sadly, we're not allowed to in a historic building like the Madison Building. So we will have a cocktail demonstration later, but it will not involve fire, to the best of my knowledge. So those are my favorites.
Well, as you know, I do have a fondness for the Easy Bake Oven cookbook. But I also, in working on a Rosa Parks book, came across her recipe for featherlight pancakes. And we had it on display earlier, and I hope you got a chance to see it. If not, there is a reproduction of it in the book. And it was on she wrote this recipe, which includes a 1/3 cup of peanut butter in her featherlight pancakes, on the back of a small manila envelope. And in working on the book about her, what I had learned was that as kind of a child of the Depression and someone who was often in really difficult circumstances, she saved every scrap of paper that came into her household. So church bulletins, utility bills, whatever it was. And so here she is writing this recipe on the back of an envelope, which completely makes sense, And to see that in her own handwriting, it's a favorite of mine.
And what's so fascinating seeing it in person, it is so small, this notebook, or envelope, excuse me. It's actually smaller than it is in our book, probably. We probably reproduced it at a larger size.
We did.
So that was fascinating, too.
Yeah. What about weird things or strange things you came across?
We do have an image in the book of frosted ham,
Okay.
which is a little bit out there.
Okay.
That's from a book by Fannie Farmer. You might have heard of her. She created the Boston Cooking School Cookbook. That's a famous one. So that was maybe the grossest item that we did include.
Okay.
Yeah.
The one that was odd that I really liked is that was mentioned is Manifold Destiny on cooking under the hood of your car, and that this is apparently not that rare. It was a little more common than I was expecting too, and the book's gone through several editions. But what I really got a kick out of was that here it's so American, because one of the things we talk about in the book is the history of tailgating, and that we've also got this idea that once automobiles became popular, Americans were picnicking out of town. This became a big thing to do. And so why wouldn't you then naturally want to cook in your car, on your car engine, so that you can multitask as you go to your destination, and you've already got this heat source. And what I loved about the book was that they don't give you temperature or time for how to cook this. They give you mileage. Oh. So for your Cajun shrimp, just plan on 55 miles. So I love that. That's another favorite, yeah.
That is a funny one. So I apologize if I'm taking your questions for them. But I do have another question, or we could move to audience. Okay, so did you make anything from the cookbook? Any recipes that you found and thought, I must make this?
So I have cooked 2 recipes from books in the cookbook, but they're not, you won't see the recipe themselves in our book, but I cooked one from Julia Child's cookbook, Mastering the Art of French Cooking. I think it was like a beef and beer kind of, not stew exactly, but that was really good. And then also one from Joe Nathan's cookbook, Jewish Cooking in America, which was, I believe, a Moroccan, also with beef, and beets. It's a very red dish. So both really good. And tonight's food was excellent too. Obviously, I wasn't the one doing the cooking, but it was really great seeing these recipes, come to life.
Yeah.
I am going to do the Rosa Parks probably this summer.
Okay. Very nice. Yeah, we can move on to audience questions. Do we have a microphone runner? Or do you want my microphone?
Hi, I had a question about the recipes because the food tonight was quite good. Were there any recipes you had planned to include but didn't because it didn't taste good enough to serve?
Well, one of the things was we prepared a list, and we knew that for some of the earlier things, say from the colonial era, that they might need to update some of that. And we left that up to the caterer. We had a list of items, and then the final cut, the caterer made the decision. And they probably tasted a few things and decided maybe certain things are better than others.
Yeah, and then for the book itself, there certainly were recipes we saw that were like, no thanks. So instead of showing that page, we just flipped to the next one and found something much more palatable, yeah.
So I have a couple questions. One is, how did you get around the copyright for where all of these like public domain recipes? And two, did you find recipes where there are ingredients that are no longer available because of climate change and those types of things?
So for the first question, which thank you for asking, we at the library take copyright very seriously since, as I like to joke, the Copyright Office is just down the hall. And especially in this building, it literally is just. So no, there's a good amount of public domain. I think everything in chapters 1 and 2 is public domain. But no, for items that were not public domain, we got permission, for sure. So from several publishers, we got permission, individuals. There's one really fascinating story that was just really, really cool for me. Whoops, my name tag just disappeared. But one of my favorite items in the book is a poster called Cooking Terms from 1969. And I was able to track down the original artist, who unfortunately she's not in the greatest health, but it was really great just chatting with her about the item. And she was beyond touch. We even were reaching out. And, if we were another publisher, we might have done a little research and be like, it's not worth it, fair use, go ahead and publish it. But no, we really put the effort in, and she was really touched. I sent her a copy of the book, and I think she enjoys it. So that was great. But some of them took a while to track down. So that was a good one. Any thoughts on the other half of the question? I'm trying to think if any ingredients are no longer.
A lot of them in the first few chapters.
Yeah.
Are going to be tough. And of course, we have this recipe for beaver tails, and grilled beaver tails that was sent to George Washington, and some of the things there not really available.
Yeah, and that's even illegal to make beaver tails. So great questions.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, I was wondering about just ethnicity and national origin and so forth with respect to recipes. Or is there any organization within the book along those lines? Bulgarian American recipes or Scandinavian American recipes and so forth.
Early on, of course, what you're seeing in colonial America is a lot of British and German sources are being used. And eventually, and there are also things coming from Native American groups, with trading different types of food. But it also really kicks in later in the book, where we're starting to see more things from the Pacific Rim. We're starting to see, sushi becomes huge. As a Westerner, I loved that we were able to get an early Mexican food book in, and we were able to get one of the first bilingual books in as well. And so, yes, it all shows up as part of the American experience, wave after wave of different groups coming in and contributing.
I have a Polish cookbook for you if you're.
Well, JJ would be the person to talk to. Yeah.
If it's published after 1800, I would take it.
Yeah,
It
that's
is
great.
possible.
Yeah, and we didn't mention this earlier, but the book is arranged chronologically. I'm sure we could have done it geographically or even by the type of food featured, but it is chronological. So this theme of immigration and ethnic food really pervades throughout the book, whether it's the 1850s with German immigrants coming in. We have a huge cookbook ad in German. We have the first Yiddish cookbook, possibly in the world, certainly in America. We have, as Susan alluded to, the first sushi book a little bit later. So a lot of different cuisines are represented.
So this is a big pivot. The Easy Bake Oven. Was the company involved? Were they engaged? And do you have any recipes to recommend?
Yes, the book came out for the 40th anniversary of the Easy Bake Oven, which it came out in 1963. So then in 2003, they did a 40th anniversary, and they looked at the history of the oven, and then they invited a lot of notable chefs to contribute recipes and that could be made in the Easy Bake Oven, serving one person. And so, you know, you've got these incredible. The names of these are just hilarious because they're you know, lobster and truffles and stuff. You know, you can cook that in an Easy Bake Oven. Yes, you can. And there are pictures of them standing next to their Easy Bake Ovens. And the other thing that was interesting was how many chefs got their start as kids. This is where the interest developed. And in a lot of cases for the male chefs, it was the older sister who had the oven. She might not have cared, but they loved it, and so it was just a really it was so Americana. It was a really fun find. Yes.
I have bought 25 of these books, but when I realized that you had not put in the settlement cookbook, I thrust a dagger through my loins. Can you tell me why?
I think that's one of those cases where there's so many we could have included that are, you know, somewhat equivalents, and we didn't want to have too many of a certain kind. So we did go with the first ever Yiddish cookbook, which was by an immigrant Jewish author. It's not exactly the same cuisine, but we thought it overlapped a little bit in the time period. It was similar, that we didn't, you know, the book could have been twice as long easily. So the next edition will have it.
You should have spoke up when you read The Galley. I fought for Mrs. Fisher. I fought hard for that one.
A question about the POW cookbooks. When you saw it in the library, were these that then were published, they were handwritten in prison? And I was
Yes.
surprised that they would have ingredients, that you would have so many dishes.
Yes, they're handwritten notebooks. In some cases, these were books that notebooks that they basically smuggled from camp to camp. They weren't allowed always to have such things. Yes, and they do. They've got the ingredients listed. And so what I was looking at were these old notebooks. They had not been published. And but one of the men who had been imprisoned wrote an unpublished book about his entire wartime experiences, and he explained why it was that this was a phenomenon, why it was that this happened all over the place, that these books started to turn out. So yeah, and the fact that people had such good handwriting back then, hugely helpful. Very, very helpful. Wouldn't want to make a lot of what's in there, but it's terrific. And no, I encourage you to take a look at them. They're really, really interesting.
I was interested in whether there's an aspect of competitive cooking, i.e. the Pillsbury Bake Off, and how that would enter the recipe lexicon.
Yeah, you know, that's a good question. Now that I think about it, we didn't necessarily include any cookbook of that kind of like competitive, you know, sort. We do briefly talk about how in the 21st century, celebrity chefs, they have cookbooks, they are on TV, they host cooking competitions. We do talk a little bit about corporate cookbooks, just a little bit. For example, the Betty Crocker cookbook, which is one of the best-selling cookbooks in America. That's the trademark is from General Mills, and Betty Crocker is not an actual person. It was just kind of a corporate spokeswoman, you know, a fictional character. But as Susan wrote in her entry on that, thousands, if not millions, of people would write into Betty Crocker asking for her you know, personal feedback and advice on food. So that was kind of an interesting aspect on kind of corporate 20th century cookbooks.
Is there a particular part of the United States that had the most interesting cuisine?
I don't know about the most interesting, but what keeps showing up is the South.
Yeah.
That's what I
You know, that we try to sample from around the country, and with a lot of the community cookbooks, you're in the Midwest, and we did try to represent things, but the South just keeps coming back in cookbook form.
Absolutely, because it's such mixing of cultures in the South. You have indigenous tribes, you have French, Spanish, enslaved African cuisine influences that. So there really were a lot of books throughout, 250 years of American history that we included. So that was probably the most represented section.
Hi, you just mentioned this, but I was going to ask, about indigenous recipes. Can you talk a little bit about that, and also what was it like to find the type of sources you were able to get for that?
Great question. One book that was really fabulous to include, it was a very, very recent book. It's called The Sioux Chef's Indigenous Kitchen, which is such a great name. Sioux spelled like the tribe in the Midwest. And there was a James Beard Award-winning cookbook from, I believe, 2017. Sean Sherman is the chef behind it, whose company is the Sioux Chef. And the whole point of the book, if you will, is the concept behind it is it's just ingredients that are native to North America. So no processed sugar, no beef, chicken, or pork, no wheat. It's local greens, grasses, berries, wild game, and it's a really important cookbook. He also opened a restaurant a few years ago in Minneapolis, where he's from, that I was very fortunate to go to a few years ago, that also won a James Beard Award. But, in earlier, we did have one book that is called, I think, The Indian Family Instructor, but it was written by a white person who claimed he used Indian sources. And so
Which he did not name.
Yeah. So it was hard getting sources for earlier stuff. So, we didn't quite get enough in there to have a full section on that, but it is a little bit of a mixing throughout the book.
Just want you to know, the sous chef was just named the Julia Child Award winner. It was announced today.
There you go.
That is up-to-date news. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, for those who didn't hear in the back, just was told that James Beard, not James Beard, the Julia Child Award went to the sous chef as of today.
And we actually, last fall, I had an intern project where we analyzed our tribal community cookbook collection, which are actually featured in the E classification in history instead of TX, which is where the culinary items are. Anyways, it resulted in us, we have a pretty well-represented collection, but it resulted in getting 50 new titles. So we went shopping and found things on eBay, had some massive spreadsheets. So that was, a recent project we just did.
We'll have to feature that in the sequel.
Yeah.
I just had a quick question. As having grown up in the South, one of the joys of the 70s was the church potluck. And it would be interesting to hear, because someone made a comment that at the church potluck, everything was a congealed salad. So did you come across anything about the rise of the use of gelatin?
Oh, yes, we did.
So that's my question.
Yeah, it's a ever-present ingredient throughout the 20th century. And there's a great image I was able to find. It's chapter 4. It's the opening image of it, an ad from, I think, Life magazine, Life for Time, of this dad kind of like, saying anyone can cook. And it's sponsored by the Jell-O company. So.
How long did the research phase take you?
It took about a little over a year, maybe even less than a year. The topic was kind of formally announced in May of 2021, or formally decided, I should say. And so that summer and fall, we were in the reading rooms here at the library. We were going through the list of books and food historians. And I think we had a working manuscript by March or April. And then it was several months of designing the book. The book was fully designed in-house here at the Library of Congress. Again, our colleagues in the design office did a fabulous job with that. And again, it was the new series. We wanted both books to look similar while still having a unique element to it. And then, the book was published this past March. So the whole thing took less than 2 years, which is pretty quick for a book, actually.
We were moving pretty fast.
Yeah.
But I should say, too, the other thing is that even once you've done a lot of your research, more and more keeps cropping up. And so as we were working on things, other ideas came about, but also we came across other sources. Yes, we need to work this in. And so the research continued really, really close up until the end as well. As we were writing, there was still research going on. Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, because I mentioned Mrs. Fisher after the galley, after I read the draft. I was like, oh, you forgot this one.
Any final question before we wrap it up?
Any questions from online?
I think, we got one more, and then I think we've already asked those if they have been, so yes.
What was your favorite thing that you had to leave out, like something you had to cut?
Oh, that's a great question. My favorite item that we left out, it's a book called The Best from the Bottle. And it was from the 1970s, and it's a drinks book. And so nothing on the interior is that unique or historically valuable, which is why in the end we kind of cut it. Also rights were kind of a murky situation there. But what's so fabulous about it is that it is literally in the shape of a liquor bottle. So it's kind of like a 3D element of the front, looks like a label, but it has the title of the book, and then the back kind of has the about it, But it looks like a 3D book. But it was really hard to get that into a book form, too, to scan it. So it didn't quite make the cut.
Yeah, one that did not make the cut, but that I was interested in for a long time. It was more of a little booklet that came out in the 1920s, I think, and it was how to cook your meals, generally chicken, in a brown paper bag.
In the microwave? Wow.
1920s.
Right, 1920s, right. In
Long
the
and
sun.
slow.
Long and slow.
There's a lot of ways to cook on cars. Who knows?
Easy bake ovens,
Easy
exactly.
bake ovens, yes. All right, well, I think we're going to wrap up this portion, but yes, thank you so much. JJ, Zach, Susan. I'm just going to remind everybody again, we have the books back there for sale. Definitely grab one. Food lover in your life, great gift. Zach and Susan are going to be out there signing the books when we wrap up the drink demonstration, so you can ask any other questions you think of between now and then, and they will be there. So thank you guys for your time. And then we are going to move up the bar. So on to drinks. Some fun thing. I see a lot of people have been having the mint juleps, which is great. So, I think when we were thinking about the drink portion, one of the first things that came to mind was, and I'm not sure where our friends from the Willard are, they're back here, yes, was partnering with the Willard Hotel and their famed and very historic Round Robin Bar. Has anyone in here been? Yes, lots of people, yes. It's one of my favorite places. Feels like you kind of take a step back in time and always wondering who else is in there and what's, happened there. So we're thrilled that the Willard came to do this demonstration for us and give us a little bit of history on the Willard too. We share a lot of history. A lot of people who've stayed at the Willard, their collections are now at the Library of Congress, from presidents to senators and everyone in between. And you'll see in the book, it actually, the first appearance and first definition of cocktail appeared in American newspapers around 1803 and 1806. So we're excited to move on to the cocktail portion. So I'm going to introduce Robert Watson, who's the chief concierge with the Willard Hotel, is going to give us a little bit of background on the Willard. And then Mercedes Cowper is the food and beverage outlet manager, and she's going to take us through how to make the perfect mint julep for the summer. So, Robert.
So I go like this, yeah? Okay. So good evening to you. As Laura says, I'm the chief concierge of the Willard Hotel, and I'm sure many of you have been there, but we position on Pennsylvania Avenue, 14th and Penn, so we're just a block away from the White House. Now, there's been an hotel in the same footprint since 1818, and this is the, no, if you go back, yep, that's okay. There's always a technical issue, isn't it? I know you're dying to get the recipe, but so this is the original Willard Hotel. It was a wooden structure for Story's Eye, and you know we had the originally it opened as the City Hotel, and then it became the Willard Hotel because the Willard brothers, who were engaged to manage the hotel by the owner, eventually bought the property, and they changed the name to the Willard Hotel. And this is from 1853, this photograph. Now, in 1861, we had President Lincoln staying with us for 2 weeks prior to him taking up the White House. And we actually have a history gallery at the Willard, which I invite you to come and have a look. And in the history gallery, we actually have the copy of his hotel bill, which when he left to the White House, he did not pay. However, he paid his bill with his first government paycheck. So, and I'm not sure if the original is with you or the National Archives. At the library? Okay, so. So during the late 1800s, there was a fire in the wooden structure, and the hotel was demolished, and the new Willard was created. And this opened in 1901 or 1902, as the picture says. And as you see, it's not fully open yet because there's still some scaffolding on the 12th floor. But it's in the same footprint as the previous building was. Okay. So in 1923, the Willard served as the unofficial White House. President Coolidge was a VP at the time, and President Harding died in office. So to allow the widow to vacate the White House, President Coolidge had the Willard Hotel as the unofficial White House. And that's why you have the presidential flag in front. And all these cars here are all Secret Service cars. So just shows you back then. And this is a picture of Grace Coolidge in our presidential suite, in one of our presidential suites. So just to bring it into prospect. So in 1968, the owner of the Willard went bankrupt. So the doors had to be closed. And they were going to demolish the building, and they were going to build something that we really need in DC now. It's a multi-story parking. Until somebody found out here, I always say down there, but I'm here now. So at the Hill, somebody found out that they were going to demolish the building and put a listing, a historical listing on the building, so they could not do anything with the exterior of the building. So you can see the hotel went into disrepair, of course. And everything from within the hotel was auctioned off. October 1968, doors were open, and everything from within, it was auctioned off. And we still get phone calls now from people who have furniture or artifacts from the Willard Hotel wanting to see if we wanted to buy them back. You know, it's true. So this is the Peacock Alley where we have the afternoon teas. And yes, I will sell it. It's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But now, unfortunately, I haven't got the new picture, which I should have, but it's amazing, the way that they prepare the tea there. And this picture here It's when the doors were closed and everything was auctioned off, and you don't have any of the candelabras, chandeliers hanging from there because, as I said, everything was auctioned off. And the floor, the only original thing that we have now from back then is the floor, the tile floor. I'm sure a lot of people have been to the Willard. The tile floor, when you come into the lobby, that's still the original one because they put plywood over it. So they saved it. Same with the columns and the front desk. Still the original front desk. So this is prior to the reopening in 1984. So some of the work that was taking place to reopen the Willard, I call it the Grand Dame of Pennsylvania Avenue. So it reopened to great fanfare in 1986, August 1986 in actual fact. And yeah, I think we that work at the Willard, we're very, very proud of the property. I'm from Europe, so, you know, coming over to the States, I've been here 17 years ago now, but I always felt that the Willard was me. You know, it's an amazing property. And I still call it the Grand Dame of Pennsylvania Avenue.
Are you going to have the wonderful history happy hours that you had in the past? They were the best. Absolutely the best.
I'm glad you're here, and you said that, because we have the hotel manager here listening to you. Did you come for the...
I came for baseball. I came from for
the secret, the CIA, FBI, the secret agent? Yeah, good. All right.
Please bring it back. Yes, Mr. Manager.
He's already making notes. But the mint julep was introduced to Washington by Henry Clay, and at the Willard Hotel, in actual fact. And that will, where's she gone? Oh, you. So anyway, Mercedes will give you more information about the mint julep. And please, as I said, do come and see us. And yeah, so, thank you.
Good evening. How is everyone? Good. And I'm not sure of your name, young lady, but I love your gumption and your energy. And also, I'm not sure who asked the question, but I will also not be lighting things on fire with this alcohol tonight, so get that out of the way. All right, we are going to be making a mint julep, and as Robert had segued into it, Mr. Henry Clay, who was a Kentucky senator, joined us, well, us, I wasn't around back then, but he joined us in the Round Robin Bar in the early 1800s, introduced the drink. It caught on like, I want to say wildfire, but due to current circumstances, probably not a great joke, but it caught on very quickly. And it continues to this day. The mint julep is still our most popular and highest grossing cocktail that we sell at the Round Robin Bar. And coincidentally, Mr. Henry Clay, who was the Kentucky senator in the 1800s, and then in 1938, it became the official drink of, can anyone guess what event it is? Kentucky Derby, yes. A little bit of a coincidence there. All right, so we are going to start. It doesn't really matter what kind of glassware you use. I think in the picture on the postcards on your tables, it shows a goblet. That's perfectly fine, whatever you happen to have on hand. For tonight, I'm going to be using a little glass tumbler. So we are going to start with a little bit of mint. Come here. All right. Oh, I'm Mercedes. And I'm the one of the food and beverage outlet managers at the Willard Hotel. So please do come see us.
Did you ever serve them in metal?
In
I kind of think that the metal keeps the cold
That is the traditional way, and I'm sure I've done some research, and that's traditionally what they serve at the Kentucky Derby. I think long before my time at the Willard, they had served that. I've seen a few of those metal cups in and around our storage areas, but for today, we use large glass goblets. Yep. We do, yes. And then we have a bunch of crushed ice here, so we'll put the crushed ice in, chill the glass, dump it out, and then muddle and make the drink. All right, very good. I'm waiting for the next question before I toss the mint in, though. But I love it. Good questions. So you'll have a bunch of mint. Typically 4 to 6 leaves, but depending on your own preference, if you like it very minty, if you like it a little bit boozier. So we'll put the mint in here. You can use either granulated sugar, either white granulated or brown sugar. I'm going to use a little brown sugar cube, and then a splash of soda water, and then muddle. You could, yes. Some recipes call for plain water, like tap water, bottled distilled water, soda water. It's really your preference. So you can muddle it for about 5 to 10 seconds, just to make sure all the mint leaves are slightly bruised. And as you can see, well, when you're making it in the glass, you can see that some of the green color has leached out. That's kind of your timing to know that it's done. And then we will fill it with some crushed ice. All the way to the top. And for tonight, I'll be using Maker's Mark bourbon, but I've also... I'm glad it's a crowd pleaser. This is also what we use at the Round Robin Bar. But we do have a plethora of other ryes and bourbons to choose from as well. I did bring some other options here. I'm sure maybe other people have different preferences with what they like to, their brown liquor that they like for old fashions, mint juleps, Manhattans. But this is one of my favorites, Rittenhouse Rye. And rye is slightly different from bourbon just because, well, it is a type of bourbon, but it has rye in it. So it has a little bit more of a bite to it, almost like if you were to taste this neat and the Maker's Mark neat with the rye, it'll almost taste like a little bit of wintergreen. So it's a little bit of bite and a little bit of kick, which I personally love, especially in Manhattans when you have some other ingredients, it is able to hold itself up. We also have Bullet Bourbon and Jefferson's, so also keeping in line with the historic aspect of tonight. All right, so we will do 2 ounces, or you can do 3. Whoever said he's here for the alcohol, you could do more than 3 if you want, no judgment. So you just pour that over the crushed ice, and as you'll see, it goes down a little bit, melts just slightly. So we can go ahead and top that up. Take another little mint sprig here for our garnish. And then I also have a little bit of a lemon peel that you twist. Yeah, gives a nice little zip, really beautiful aroma, and a really nice touch. And then you have a cute little mint julep to make. And Robert's thirsty, so. Were there any questions about the bourbons, muddling, mints? No? There you go. Yes, ma'am.
Do people order mint juleps year-round?
They do, yes. Oh, sorry. She asked if the guests at Round Robin Bar order mint juleps year-round, and yes, emphatically yes. Throughout the year, month to month, it's the most popular cocktail that we have. It's very refreshing. I mean, it's whether it's in the summertime, it's nice and refreshing, especially with the lemon on top. It feels very light. And then in the wintertime, if you wanted to make it a little extra boozy. You know, it kind of warms you from inside, so it can go either way. Any other questions? And if you haven't had one yet, they do have mint juleps at the bar, so if you're curious. Yes, sir.
Where did the Willard get crushed ice in the summertime 100 years ago?
Ooh, that is a good question. Maybe Robert, I'm putting you on the spot. He asked, where would the Willard get their crushed ice? About 100 years ago, you said? Yeah, a long time ago. Sorry, I wasn't there then. No. That is something I can look it up. Yeah, and I'll share my information with you because I would be interested in that as well. Good question. Yeah, exactly. All right.
Great. Well,
very good. Thank you.
Mercedes, thank you so much. Robert, wherever you are, thank you so much. And thank you guys for coming. Thank you again for your support. Reminder, all the food lovers in your life, grab a book. On the back, Susan and Zach will be on the way out. Definitely have them sign it. And we just are so thankful for you guys to come. As a reminder, the National Book Festival is coming up August 12th. Yes, at the Washington Convention Center. So we hope to see you guys all there. And then we are just, like I said, thank you so much for being friends. I hope to see you guys at the next event. There'll be more in the future. So have a great evening and grab a last snack on the way out. Thanks.